Awesome. Wow, it is really cool to be on stage now because I've been seeing some incredible speakers throughout. And most of the conferences that I go to, in fact, the one I was just at in Cleveland, there was 30 speakers going on at one time, a bunch of different conference rooms. And whenever you saw the people file into your room, you were just kind of like, no, I'm sure they've had a pretty good day, but maybe some of the speakers weren't that good. And maybe I can really over-deliver here, but this is a one-track conference right now, and I know how good all the speakers have been, so I have a lot to live up to. And you guys have been a great engaged audience, so I've really been enjoying that. So let's definitely keep that up throughout as well. But what I'm here to talk about today is specifically webinars and the 5 things that I have personally learned doing webinars in the past 2 years, and it's been a lot. Now, we launched Podcasters Paradise on October 31st, 2013. And we did everything right when we launched Podcasters Paradise. And I kind of want to walk people through what that looked like really quickly, because this is how a product, a service, a community should be launched. And by the way, that was through some trials and errors and failures that we had prior to that. But we built an audience through a medium of our choice, which was podcasting. Then we asked that audience that we built, what are you struggling with? And then once we heard what that struggle was, we created the solution to that struggle. People wanted to create, grow, and monetize their own podcasts. So we created Podcasters Paradise. We had the audience in place. We had the validation in place. We had a beta group go through. We had everything. And when we launched on October 31st of 2013, it was an amazing and exciting day, a culmination of sorts. And we did over $25,000 in sales into Podcasters Paradise on that day. It was a pretty good day. But the reality is this, as I was saying, hey, we did $25,000 today, like I want to keep this up, like how can we get to $30,000 tomorrow, and so on and so forth. And instead, this is what happens. November 1st came, November 2nd came, November 3rd, and I looked at Kate and I said, wow, $25K, I'm never going to complain about that. We're doing a sale here and there as the days are going on, but this is not what I expected. Like, how are we missing out here? What are we doing wrong? What are we missing? Like, how can we bring this to more people? Because I know that once they get into Podcasters Paradise, they're raving about it. They're having massive success. They're doing all the right things. But how do we get people there? Because this is what we were seeing. We were just seeing a downward trend. We had all of our early adopters, our raving fans that we had built, they jumped right in, and they were awesome. But now how do we get the other 99% of people that want to learn how to create, grow, and monetize a podcast to find that Podcasters Paradise was for them? That was our challenge. So over the last almost now 2 years, Kate and I have done over 100 live webinars. And the numbers, I should have done the numbers before I came here, but it's probably closer to 150. I mean, we have done so many webinars. Like, I wake up and I'm just like, okay, like, what am I going to do today? Well, I know one of those things is going to be a webinar because we are always doing webinars and we love them. So I'm going to be taking you guys through the 5 things that I've learned that I think are so important for everybody in the audience today, because I know you can apply these things to your first webinar, to your 10th webinar if you've already done some. Or no matter where you are in the process, these are going to be a big help. But first, and by the way, these people have no idea I'm about to do this, but I'm going to ask Mel to stand up. Is Mel in the audience right now? He's not happy. So Mel, let me introduce you guys. He is from Tacoma, Washington. He went to Southern Illinois University. He's a Saluki. He came down from Tacoma for Webinar Ninja Live and also to hang out in San Diego. He used to be stationed here. He's in the military. And he went to Alberto's for a carne asada, and he loved it. He said it was better than he remembers when he had it 15 years ago. His wife didn't have quite as good of a meal as he had, but he really enjoyed it. Am I pretty close on all that, Mel? Pretty close? Thank you. Wow. Let's have Kathy stand up. Is Kathy in the house? There she is. So Kathy's actually from Del Mar. She lives pretty close to the Del Mar racetrack. She loves going to the races when it's not too crowded, but she does really love the fair, specifically the photography exhibits in the fair. So that's pretty cool that we're actually in MOPA right now because this is a great photography Museum. And so Kathy's here, and she's excited for the content that's coming. And it's great to have you in Southern California, Kathy. Give her a round of applause, guys. Can I have, is Susan in the house? Oh, there's Susan. Can you stand up? Susan Tate is from Southern Philadelphia, born and raised on the playgrounds. Could keep going. She lives here in Pacific Beach currently. She loves her Eagles. She's a power lifter. In fact, she power lifted this morning before she came. She has a great place that she goes to called Shock Fitness right in Pacific Beach. Great. She's a wonderful cook. And I will say, unlike the prior two that I just shared, Susan is also a close and personal friend. I moved to San Diego in 2009. She was one of the first people I met. We were neighbors, and we've been close ever since. So give her a round of applause, guys. Now, why I kind of just went through that little exercise is because I met Mel and Kathy for the very first time today. I did not know them before, but I wanted to get to know them as I've gone to know other people. And there's no better place than a live conference like this to meet people and to engage and to form real relationships. Like, I'm going to go to Alberta and get a carne asada now thanks to Mel. Like, I never even would have heard of that place, but now I'm going. Like, that's a cool connection. We can't do this every single day. But what we can do, and what I'm going to encourage everybody to do, is to utilize the second best thing to a live event, a live conference, in-person meetings, and that's a webinar. I make these kind of connections on webinars every single time I do a webinar. I'm naming people, I'm calling out, oh, you're from Kentucky, I was in Fort Knox, I was an officer in the US Army for 13 months, I was training there, I love Fort Knox, I'll name a couple restaurants, we'll connect on that webinar. They've heard me say their name, I've made a connection with them, like a real life connection, and it's a really, really cool experience. And you can make these connections over again every single time you have a webinar, and it's really exciting. Now, I want to let everybody in the audience know, whether you do know it or not, your favorite radio station is WII.FM. It's true. And every single one of the attendees of your webinars, their favorite radio station is also WII.FM. What's in it for me? Everybody wants to know what's in it for them. They are busy. Grant, has to go to his kid's art gallery. He can't just be on a webinar for no reason. He has other things to do. You have other things to do. We all have other things to do. So what's in it for me, the attendee? You have to make that super clear right up front. And guys, I'm taking you logically through what you need to be focused on as you're going through your webinar process. Everybody that comes to me and they say, John, can you check out my podcast? I want you to hear it. Can you check out my website real quick and critique it? The first thing I always do is I go to their About Me page on their website, and I say, your About Me page is about you. And they said, well, yeah, it's an About Me page. And I said, no, the About Me page is about the value that your visitor is going to get by being on this website, listening to this podcast, on this webinar. The about you part, the personal part about you, that can come 500, 1,000 words later, but you have to first cement it in their minds what's in it for them. Then you got to move into why you. This is where you establish credibility. This is where you establish authority in your topic. This is so critical, and so many people kind of just brush over this fact. Earlier you saw, I was actually on an image. You actually got to see a screenshot of my webinar. Clay put it up there, which is really cool, where I go through my story. And I don't just brush over that stuff. Like, I say, listen, I'm not going to be long in the tooth here, but I am going to take some time and get to know and let you know who I am, just like I got to know you in the first 15 minutes. Like, I now want you to know who I am so you can connect with me, and you can see why I'm the right person to be teaching you this content about podcasting. Because 3 years ago, I was you. I was searching for content, and I didn't have knowledge. I didn't have the understanding of skills about what podcasting was. This is how I got there, and this is why you can get there too. So why you? How are you building that credibility and authority? And that's why podcasting, writing blogs, doing videos, all of these things need to be part of your brand and part of your plan as you're growing your business so that when you get people on a webinar, you've already established yourself as that person of authority who knows what they're talking about, and they know why they're there. Absolutely critical. NLP is so underutilized, and for some reason, people are kind of scared of it. They kind of like bulk it in, well, that's what an internet marketer would do. That's what, like a slimy car salesman would do. This is what a good speaker, presenter, webinar host will do. Will use NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. This stuff works. And you need to be honest with yourself. You need to say, if I'm going to create a webinar that has value, that can actually improve somebody's life, that's a program, a product, a service, a community that's going to improve the person that actually takes advantage of this, then you are obligated to make sure that you have people as engaged for as long as possible. You are obligated to make sure that they don't go off to Facebook, to Twitter. You are obligated that they stay around and get the content that you have busted your butt to create for them. And that's what NLP will help you do. Now, there's a great book I recommend. It's called The Little Black Book of Persuasion. You can get it on Amazon. It'll break down a lot about what NLP is, but I'll give you an example of NLP. And it's just an engaging way of talking, guys. It's just a way that you're engaging the audience. And I've been using NLP throughout this talk a little bit, and I'm going to show you one way that I have. It's called open loops. Now, what do you think when I say open loops? Well, you probably are thinking of something that's not quite complete, not quite closed, and that's exactly what open loops are. So when I'm doing my podcast workshops, I'll say something along the lines of, hey guys, I am the #2 ranked podcast for the keyword entrepreneur. I'm the #2 in all of iTunes. Think of the organic traffic that drives me every single day. And I'll show a screenshot of it. Then I'll say, what do you want to rank for in iTunes? There's 525 million active users. There's 45 million people that are using that search bar every single day. And they're typing something in. And when those people are typing in keywords that you want to rank for, don't you want to be found for that? Don't you want to take advantage of the amazing search engine of iTunes, of Stitcher Radio, of Spotify, of SoundCloud? Don't you want to be a part of that? Well, in a few slides, I'm actually going to show you a live training of how I do that. And I've kept that loop open. Because now I'm moving into the next part of the workshop with them saying, man, I am going to stick around because I want to find out via that live training how I can open loops and how I can rank in iTunes for keywords. Critical. Now, before I close that loop in 4 or 5 slides, I'm opening another loop. I'm saying, hey guys, the next slide, I'm going to show you that live training I promised. And what's really cool about that is that once you've done that and you're ranking for the right words, I'm going to show you how you can actually be in 3 categories, not one. Everybody's in one category, but there's a place in Libsyn and SoundCloud that you can make sure that you are showing up in 3 categories. I've opened another loop now. So then I go ahead and close that loop, and they're like, oh, that feels good. That's great. But I've opened another loop up, and so I continue going down the chain until next thing they know, and saying, hey guys, hope you've enjoyed the presentation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Podcaster's Paradise now. And that is NLP. Scarcity. You've heard it a few times before. You saw Matthew Kimberly do it beautifully on stage with a Granny Smith apple. There are so many different ways that you can use scarcity to your advantage, and I recommend it to the highest. There is nothing that is going to get sales, conversions on a webinar better than scarcity, period. I've tested it all. I've done 150 plus live webinars. I've tried everything. And I do want to be very clear here. The scarcity has to be real. It has to be genuine. It has to be honest transparency. You spend a life building your reputation, and all it takes is 1 second to ruin it. That's a Warren Buffett quote, and it's so true. So stand by your scarcity, but you need to utilize that. That needs to be part of one of the arrows in your quiver. Scarcity is huge. I'm going to give you a couple examples of how I use scarcity on every single live webinar, and how I've used scarcity in the past as well, and how I plan on using it in the future. On every live webinar right now, I say, hey, this is at the end of the webinar when I'm actually getting into the Paradise pitch / investment. I say, we are going to increase the price of Podcaster's Paradise. And consistently, for the last 2 years, we have raised the price. And everybody knows we're going to continue to do so. That is real scarcity that we utilize. Then we always talk on the actual live webinar about the fact that, listen, you have a full 30 days to test this out. You're going to want to check it out right now because you're going to be able to see everything that we have in Podcaster's Paradise, and you're going to be able to get a 100% refund if it's not for you. And if it is for you, then you made the right decision. If it's not, it's a totally risk-free option. But if you don't make the decision now, when you do make the decision, the price will likely be higher. And that is real scarcity. And another thing that we say on every single live workshop is that when you join Podcaster's Paradise today, you will be a lifetime member, but we are moving into a recurring membership model, meaning it's going to be annually at $12.97 or just going forward at $99 per month, never stopping. We are moving to that model. We haven't done so yet, but we are. And so the people that lock in now are not going to have to pay that continual annual or monthly payment. So this is all real scarcity. In May, Kate and I were leaving for Cebu. And I said, Kate, we've just brought in a couple new people to the team. We're going to add some new video tutorials when we get back from the actual trip to Cebu. Really excited about while we're gone. But the reality is, we're not going to be able to keep that close of look on the onboarding process of Podcaster's Paradise, because I make phone calls to every single person that joins Podcaster's Paradise. They get a one-on-one phone call. I welcome them to Paradise. I ask them how they heard about us. It's a great way for me to connect and to thank people. So I'm not going to be able to do that during that whole month because we're going to be busy. So let's just close the doors to Paradise. So we use real scarcity. And so for 4 days, from May 1st to May 4th, we let our entire audience know, hey, we are closing the doors to Paradise on May 4th. The doors are going to be closed. We will reopen Paradise. We're not positive when, but we will reopen. Those 4 days, we did 287 sales into Podcaster's Paradise, which equated into $335,000. That is almost double what we average per month with Podcaster's Paradise. And that was just in 4 days because we used real scarcity. We closed the doors. They were closed for over a month. We came back. We fixed a lot of things up. We improved some processes. We opened the doors back up, and we welcomed people into Paradise going forward. That is real scarcity. So think about the scarcity that you can employ with your webinars. Invite a decision. The great movie Glengarry Glen Ross, I love the quote where he goes, you're either selling or you're being sold. It's always one of the two. And it's the exact same thing in webinars. You can't let people think that they're going to get off of your webinar without making a decision, because they are making a decision. And so that's why on every single live workshop that we do for Podcaster's Paradise or Webinar on Fire, I invite a decision. I say, listen, I have 2 choices today. You can either go at this alone. And guess what? I did 3 years ago. I went at this alone, and it's not such a bad thing. I was able to succeed. I learned a lot going at it alone. And that's a decision that you have before you. You can go at this alone. Nothing wrong with it. Or your other decision, your second and only other decision, is to join Podcaster's Paradise, to join our family, to be part of over 2,600 member family that we've created, where we teach people how to create, grow, and monetize their own podcast. That's your other decision. So you can either make a decision not to join Paradise, or you can make the decision to join Paradise. Invite that decision. Let people know it's black or it's white.